welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into something, well, fascinating, maybe a little unsettling. What happens to your crypto, your digital wealth after you're gone?
It's a huge question, really, and it's tricky. Unlike, say, a bank account, where there are laws and procedures for inheritance, crypto is different.
Totally different. It all hinges on those private keys or seed phrases, doesn't it?
Exactly. That's the core security model. Possession is everything.
So if the owner passes away and nobody knows those keys or where to find them, poof, the assets are just locked away forever.
Pretty much, yeah. There's no reset password button, no bank manager you can call. It really highlights this clash between, perfect digital security and just human life. People forget things, accidents happen.
Right. And it's not just theoretical. The sources brought up that story about Gerald Cotten, the QuadrigaCX guy.
Yeah, that's probably the most famous example. Stark, really. He died suddenly, and apparently he was the only one who had the keys to cold wallets holding, what was it? Around $250 million of customer funds.
$250 million. Just potentially gone. Inaccessible.
It really drives home why this isn't some minor detail. Planning for this stuff is actually crucial.
Absolutely. So that's our mission for this deep dive. Explore the ways people are trying to solve this based on what the sources discuss. The solutions seem to range from techie stuff to, well, almost philosophical ideas.
Yeah, there's quite a spectrum. Some of the more straightforward approaches involve thinking about inheritance right when you set up a wallet, like using multi-signature wallets, multi-sig, they call it.
Okay, multi-sig, I've heard the term. Let's unpack that a bit.
Right.
How does needing multiple keys help with, well, inheritance?
So imagine you set it up so a transaction needs, say, 2 out of 3 keys to go through.
Right.
You hold one, maybe your chosen heir holds the second, and perhaps a lawyer or another trusted person holds the third.
Okay, gotcha.
When you pass away, the other 2 key holders can come together, use their keys, and access the funds. They don't need your specific key. It distributes the trust, avoids that single point failure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Spreads the load, so to speak. What about more automated ways? I saw smart contracts mentioned.
Yes. Smart contracts open up some really interesting avenues. They're basically just programs on the blockchain, right? Self-executing code. And you could potentially program one to release funds only when specific conditions are met, like a kind of digital dead man's switch.
A dead man's switch. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. Maybe a bit morbid again. How would that actually work? How does the contract know?
Well, that's the tricky part, isn't it? Verifying death in a decentralized way. Maybe it's triggered if your wallet is inactive for a really long time. Or perhaps it needs confirmation from specific people you designated.
Right.
But the core idea is using code, predefined rules, to handle the transfer automatically, instead of relying on someone finding and using your keys after the fact.
This is where it starts to feel a bit sci-fi almost. The sources mention even more futuristic ideas. Biometrics.
Yeah, using biological data. The concept there is maybe a system that needs regular proof-of-life checks, like a fingerprint scan or retina scan,
Right.
If you don't provide that proof for a certain period, the system assumes something's happened and could trigger the asset release. It tries to flip the problem, prove you're alive, or else.
But that raises huge questions, right? Privacy. Who controls that biometric data?
Okay, absolutely. Big questions. And speaking of decentralized proof, things get even wilder. The sources talked about using DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, to essentially issue death certificates.
Wait, DAOs? Like a group vote confirming someone's passed away?
Kind of, yeah. The idea is that a decentralized network governed by code and maybe token holders voting could somehow reach a consensus about a person's death.
Wow.
That consensus could then trigger the smart contract or whatever mechanism releases the assets. It's definitely pushing the boundaries of what blockchain could do. Very experimental.
A DAO voting on your death. Wild. But, the sources also touched on something maybe even deeper, a question about whether digital assets should even be inherited at all.
It's a fascinating angle, especially prominent in the NFT space, the digital art world.
Right.
Some creators are apparently saying they want their digital works destroyed when they die. Like, take the art out of circulation permanently. It becomes part of their final artistic statement, maybe.
So it challenges that basic assumption that all value, all assets must be passed on.
Exactly. It adds another layer of complexity to this whole digital legacy thing.
Okay, so let's sort of wrap this up. We started with this core problem, lost keys, lost crypto, highlighted by that huge QuadrigaCX case. Then we looked at practical fixes like multi-sig wallets, automated smart contracts.
Then into the more future-facing ideas like biometrics, DAO death certificates. A bit out there, maybe.
Definitely. And finally, that sort of philosophical curveball. Should these digital things even last forever, or should they vanish with their creator?
It really shows there isn't one easy answer for crypto inheritance right now. Just a lot of different approaches being explored, each with its own complexities.
For sure. So thinking about all this, the unique nature of crypto, these different solutions from the practical to the, well, unusual. What does it really mean to plan your digital legacy? And ultimately, who gets the final say over these kinds of assets? It leaves you with that image from the sources, doesn't it? The idea of becoming a ghost billionaire on the blockchain. Something to think about.